Demetrius, it's been a minute, man. It's been a minute. How does it feel to move up in weight? Why did you move up in weight?
Yeah, I mean, 54, 160. I did my thing there. You don't get any younger, so can't make 160 anymore. So I want to move on into this new journey at 168 and make it happen.
Demetrius Andrade joins Al Haymon finally. PBC. He can no longer make 160. That's what I want to talk about. Let's talk about it. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I am back with some more boxing. SLC, subscribe, like, and comment. So, pleasant surprise in the world of boxing. Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade, he finally gets it, and he has seemingly teamed up with Showtime and Steven Espinoza and Al Haymon's PBC. It was announced yesterday that he was going to be fighting in DC, not far from where he's from. He's from Rhode Island, but again, travel distance for some of his people. And he's going to be fighting on the Gervonta Davis versus Hector Luis Garcia card. And that's January 7th in DC. Now, this again was a pleasant surprise. I personally love this news. I've been a fan of Demetrius Andrade, but he teamed up with Eddie Hearn. And if I'm being frank, his career has not lived up to the expectations while he was with Eddie Hearn that most people had. Now, so you got to keep in mind, this what was frustrating about Demetrius Andrade's career. Demetrius Andrade was one of them ones, and he's a U.S. Olympian, and I remember hearing about him back in the HBO days. Now, keep in mind, just to preface it, HBO's been out of boxing 4 years or better, right? So they haven't been in the business for a minute. But you heard about Demetrius Andrade back then. He was fighting like Brian Rose and Vanes Matarosen on HBO, and people were checking for him. This is way back 2013, 2014-ish. Like I said, HBO's been out of business. But bad choice after bad choice, it seems like Demetrius Andrade, his career just never amounted. And then he teamed up with Eddie Hearn, which was kind of a weird move because Eddie Hearn, and I've said this from the beginning, Eddie Hearn has not produced any American star. Like you look at a guy like Gervonta Davis, PBC, Showtime, Mayweather Promotions, Gervonta's team, GTD Promotions. They've built him into a great big star in the world of boxing. Same thing with Wilder and Errol Spence's, right? But this can't be said for guys like Demetrius Andrade. And it can't be said for Eddie Hearn's stable. Eddie Hearn has not produced any stars that are in America and are booming in America. That's just facts. And Demetrius Andrade signing with him, he was fighting Artur Akovs, guys that Billy Joe Saunders had already beaten. He was fighting guys like Lucas Keeler, who nobody ever really heard of. His claim to fame was fighting Luis Cuba Arias and beating him. It just wasn't looking like the lick for Demetrius Andrade, and Andrade called out big names like Canelo, namely. Canelo laughed at him and says, "You're a horrible fighter," which I stuck up for Andrade because I wanted to see the Canelo fight at 154 or 160, but we know Canelo's playing games and he didn't want it to happen. So all in all, I'm very happy that the Southpaw, 34 years old, he's finally getting it, and he's doing what I believe he should have done from the beginning. And I know for a fact he had opportunities to join forces with Showtime previously. But, it's still, I guess the time was right now, and he decided to make the move. I don't know the structure of his deal. I don't know if it's multiple fights or however long, but just seeing him on a PBC card, we're going to start there and start with that. And I'm good with that. Demetrius Andrade is moving up to 168. He says he can no longer, you guys heard the clip at the beginning, he said he can no longer make 160. And he says, and the reason why I believe it's a structured deal is because you guys heard the clip at the beginning, and he was talking about fighting David Benavidez, the winner of that Benavidez, Caleb Plant fight and things of this sort. So if he wasn't planning on doing business with PBC and Al Haymon, then I don't know why he would have said that. So the future is now looking bright for Demetrius Andrade, because he was going to fight Zach Parker, who just lost to John Ryder. And, that fight really would have been like all the other recent fights he had with Eddie Hearn. So I'm glad he pulled out of that fight. And, the only people bigging up not John Ryder, but Zach Parker was the UK, if anything. You never heard me say Zach Parker is the next person in boxing. But with this move, with Demetrius Andrade making this move, it got me thinking. And to me, this is a bad look for Terence Crawford. Reason being, so you had Rashidi Ellis, who's also on the card, the Gervonta Davis card, right, on the undercard. And he was with Golden Boy. He sat out for a while after beating Alexis Rocha, and then got out of his contract, and then he went to Al Haymon. So you have one black fighter who's from Rhode Island too, or at least he reps Rhode Island and spars with Demetrius Andrade, right? And maybe he's one of the people that got Demetrius Andrade to go over, because I know for a fact that Rashidi Ellis spars with Demetrius Andrade, or has several times, right? And I believe they're from the same area. So maybe that's part of his reason, like because Rashidi Ellis left Golden Boy and went to PBC and with Al Haymon. And, maybe that gave some inspiration, at least, to Andrade to do the same. But at age 34, it's a good move, and it's do or die, because Terence Crawford is right around the same age, 34, 35 years old. And he had an opportunity to, after being with Top Rank for so long, he had the opportunity to join forces with Al Haymon, which, in my opinion, just like Andrade, seems to be the best bet, because Andrade, he's been calling out Canelo since 154 and 160, and he hasn't been getting those names. He hasn't been getting Canelo. So why not go to the next best option if you can't get Canelo, which Canelo already said, you're a horrible fighter, I'll never fight you. Literally said that when Andrade ran up on him and after the Billy Joe Saunders fight. So I wouldn't put no stock that Canelo will finally do right. He's getting overpaid by DAZN to take fights like John Ryder and Avni Yildirim and things like that. So we know he's not interested in fighting Demetrius Andrade, because if he was really interested, he would have done so already. So the bad look for Terence Crawford is this. Rashidi Ellis had issues with Golden Boy or whatever, and then he went to Al Haymon, black fighter. You have Demetrius Andrade, who people haven't really even been able to follow his career, because he's been fighting just kind of domestic level guys. And then the people, from what I've seen, people are more excited for him being on this Tank undercard than has been the case for Demetrius Andrade's last several fights, because he was again fighting domestic level guys, Jason Quigley's and Artur Kovs and guys like that. And Eddie Hearn don't know what he's doing in America. So this is the most exposure that we've really seen from Demetrius Andrade. So again, correlating to Terence Crawford, Crawford is in the same boat, probably even worse than Andrade, because they're both around the same age, 34, 35. And a lot of people compared their careers, actually, Bud's career and Andrade's career. But the difference being, Andrade at age 34, he's something switched over, and he decided to go to PBC where the action was, or the action for him is. And now he completely changed the path of his career and created new possibilities and new potential fights and outcomes to different fights. He could fight Jamal Charlo. He could fight the winner of David Benavidez and Caleb Plant. Carlos Adames, that's possibly a guy. He said he can't make 160, but if guys like Charlo or Carlos Adames move up to the new division. You also got David Morrell Jr., who's at 168. So he just created, potential legacy fights and big fights just by doing what was reasonable, and that's teaming up with Al Haymon and PBC in his division. Now, for Crawford, he's in the same position, if not worse, because 147 and 154 is largely owned by Al Haymon and PBC, meaning the best and biggest fights for Crawford in those divisions are teamed up and signed up with Al Heyman. But Crawford decided to go AWOL, and he was negotiating with Errol Spence and his team and Al Heyman, and he decided to go a completely different direction to fight on BLK Prime, who has no other welterweight fighters for real, you know, unless they're talking about Broner. But I don't even really know what weight class Broner plans on fighting. And I think he has a good relationship with Terence Crawford, so I don't know that the two would even fight. So BLK Prime, although they're paying him a lot of money, what else? Like, do you have any legacy fights? What's your future 2-3 fights from now? You know, David Avanesyan's a one-off fight, and then what? You know, and David Avanesyan is not better than the Crawford fights that he's been fighting. So again, Demetrius Andrade, I'm happy for him. And he needed this because he's 34 years old, and you got to make something shake because there's a whole new crop of fighters coming up, you know, that are real popping. You got fights like Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia. I mean, that's a fight that attracts even a young crowd, right? And there's people like Jerron Boots Ennis and just a lot of star power on the way up. So some of the older fighters will be ushered out if they're not making impactful moves and if they haven't turned over and become a star at this point. Like Deontay Wilder, he's around the same age, maybe, you know, a year or two older, but he's already been on pay-per-view, and that's what I'm talking about. So Wilder, he's already had big fights, and he has a lot of big fight options, and he's already established. He's established as a guy that his fights are likely going to be on pay-per-view and be big events. He's a knockout artist, and he's been branded good. But Demetrius Andrade and Terence Crawford haven't, for the last several years, been branded well in fights, in fan-friendly fights and big events and putting mega butts in seats and things like that. And now Demetrius Andrade at least has an opportunity to do it. But Crawford, you know, who knows what the future holds. But the good thing for Crawford is this, that Demetrius Andrade, I know for a fact, had opportunities to work with Showtime in the past. And luckily they didn't hold a grudge against him, because they could have easily said, you were signed up to fight Jermell Charlo. You pulled out of the fight for whatever reason, money, or didn't like the deal after you had already agreed to it. And there's other times where they tried to get Demetrius Andrade on board and over to the PBC. And for whatever reason, at those times, he didn't take it. So they could have been like, you know, F this dude and just let him rot and try to be with smaller promoters because he's no longer with Eddie Hearn. But they threw pretty much a life raft out to Demetrius Andrade. And again, and this is not an indignation on Demetrius Andrade's talent, because I think he's a talented fighter, difficult, awkward style. I'm talking about the branding of his career, the names he's fought. He needs big fights. Like, people know he's too good to lose to Jason Quigley and Artur Akovs and guys that you never heard of. So people want to see him against the Caleb Plants of the world, David Benavidez, who said he would fight him, David Morrell Jr., you know, just A-class elite level fights for him. And now he's opened up, you know, a brand new horizon in his career. And Crawford had that same opportunity, but he chose to go elsewhere. So proud of Demetrius Andrade, because to me, it makes the most sense given the fact that Canelo hasn't seemingly wanted to fight against Andrade for this long. So I highly doubt he's going to turn on a new leaf and want to fight him after he already told the world, I'll never fight you. You're a horrible fighter. So it's good for Andrade to move forward and try to get the Morrells, the Benavidez, the Plants, Charlo, you know, these other names that are with PBC. And that sounds like the direction that he's on. So I'm with that. And I'm definitely going to be checking out this card because it's star-studded. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. We unpacked. Introducing Super Thanks. Right here on the official Boxing Ego YouTube. Super Thanks allows you, the viewers, to show a little bit of extra gratitude, which enables me as a full-time content creator to push out the content you need in the world of boxing. Underneath all the videos, you will see a heart with a $sign in it. You can enter any amount that you find suitable as a super thanks. A brand new interactive and colorful way to get your comments highlighted and noticed by not only myself, but other people on the YouTube platform. Super thanks, a unique and cool way to show and applaud us full-time content creators. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content. Super thanks. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation. Are you tired of your YouTube videos not getting any views? Well, consider TubeBuddy. I've used TubeBuddy for years to scale up my YouTube channel. Now we're sitting over 200,000 subscribers. TubeBuddy is a browser extension that offers a ton of built-in productivity and time-saving services to take your channel to the next level. Use my link in the description to get started with TubeBuddy and level up your channel faster. We working.